Hello team and welcome back to another Line Warcast, and this is your map today in a 1v1 between AK Misk in blue and Infenzia in red. I believe this is a league match. It might not be a league match, I'm gonna just lie to you straight up. But there is a 1v1 league going on right now. I believe both these players are part of it. Maybe this was just a random match that they played. Either way, two top players. Very interesting, relatively close spawn locations. Infenzia on the right in red going for a double airport opener. And AK Misk across the body of water with two towns and an airport as the starting buildings with barracks as the follow-up. This is a two-striker build from Infenzia, which we haven't seen in a while. That's generally a build that was in earlier iterations of Lion War, but it's one of the best builds there is. A truly great build, double airport striker, and Infenzia has a town on the far right. And that's all we really got to say. There's an upcoming release of Line War for AI. We don't know when it's going to happen. Maybe there's going to be some quality of life improvements. Fingers crossed for a replay overlay, personally, selfishly, so that it's much easier and you can kind of follow along with the eco without me having to say it every few minutes. It's 400 right now for blue and 355 for red, which makes a lot of sense. AK Misk went for two of those towns to start the game off. And neither player will be aware that the other one is so close. Infenzia building two strikers. I wonder from the pick phase whether Infenzia's guess is that AK Misk is going to be here. Because the striker's range, as you can see, well, I guess when we press tab on Infenzia's view, it's actually AK Misk's airport. But certainly this blue line for the striker range for red would be well within all of blue's buildings. And the first SAM on the way for Infenzia, which is very nice against an airport opener from AK Misk, who has one single helicopter complete and building an interceptor right now, which very likely is going to be able to scout exactly where Infenzia is. .427 eco for red and 450 for blue. And first refinery for Infenzia. Here's the interceptor scout blue line from AK Misk, which the interceptor will take as soon as it's done. Very likely this is going to be the refinery for AK Misk. Potentially this one in the bottom left. Bottom left one will be safer, but obviously blue doesn't have access to it quite yet. So it depends how quickly AK Misk would like to put down a refinery. It's a fifth striker for Infenzia and then an interceptor, which is very nice. 5 strikers can destroy a building in one pass. And I wonder if this is a very cool play from Infenzia with one interceptor to just scout out a building and then have the strikers take it down. Which could be devastating against the airport. There's no SAMs yet for blue. And one interceptor would be able to deal with some amount of strikers, but not 5 before they are able to destroy the airport. And then the interceptor will have no choice but to eject and destroy itself because there's nowhere for it to land. This is blue's vision, so both players now seeing each other in the north. And the strikers are taking off. For Infenzia, I don't even know where they're going. Oh, this is the line. The cloud. All the planes for Infenzia are going up to the north. So this alerts AK that this is in fact strikers. There's one SAM on the way. And a second interceptor as well. And this interceptor is not going to be able to make it home. I think this SAM in the mountains is going to get one more shot off. And it doesn't. Oh, it's actually a helicopter. It's the second helicopter for AK Misk. Infanzia sees all the buildings that are constructed, so the strikers would be able to show up next time. They're actually target commanded onto the factory. The factory makes a lot of sense because the goal is probably to keep the SAM count as low as possible. So if the red planes can destroy this building before the SAM's out, that's actually a pretty big deal. And 2 helicopters can certainly try their best to attack the planes, but they're not going to do any meaningful damage to them. Top down. That's the split map situation. What'll be very cool to see is if either player decides to build a dock here. I think it's probably unlikely, especially since there are strikers for red, which would make it hard to defend for blue without a lot of SAMs. And then sort of vice versa. There's 2 helicopters with a 3rd one on the way already. This SAM does get out. And nice teamwork with the interceptor to take out one of the strikers. Interceptors are the coolest looking unit in Line War. This is a known thing. It's been discussed before, it's been debated, and we all know it to be true. 600 income for Infanzia and 612 for AK Misk, who is running low on energy. Capping this territory now. Actually, this is already capped. So as soon as AK Misk is 260, my bet is that this refinery will be taken. The strikers get to do a ton of damage now because blue is out of energy. There's only, well, I guess there's a second SAM here now, which makes it a little bit scary for the planes if they're not coming in all at the same time. And although, I guess the interceptor gets up and does 1 missile worth of damage, which is pretty good considering that blue is out of energy. I don't understand how that even happened. That is a super dead airport. One of the helicopters survives. And for the price of 2, maybe it was 3 strikers. I believe it was 2. That's super worth it and puts Infanzia in a very good spot in this game. That's a lot of initial investment that AK built that is essentially wasted, just results in 1 helicopter. And now Infanzia gets to build a barracks in the north. Good news for AK in the south is that this is entirely won by blue. I haven't really been paying attention down here. My bad. Factory in the south as well. This will make it very difficult for Infanzia to take any land back in the south. There's no SAMs, so the strikers are going to get a good first volley off here. But I don't think they're going to be able to thin it out enough to stop the advance of blue. It's 712 eco for blue and 693 for red, which is super close. And there's that first SAM just making its way over. But now it's very difficult. After losing that factory, AK Misk is back on 2. All of these factories need to start making SAMs. This is a pretty wide amount of land to cover. There has to be a dot of SAMs in the south and some amount of SAMs by the base. These 3 SAMs are doing a decent job of it, and potentially at some point we'll see blue dig in more SAMs by this town. But because it's all SAMs, red will have an artillery advantage, probably just like overall fighting capacity advantage in general as well. And Infanzia is doing, I think, what is the best play is just to eco right now, knowing that there's no risk that blue is going to show up with a big push. And the momentum's totally in blue's or in red's favor. AK Misk going for commandos. These can be a good way to turn something around, get them behind enemy lines. And so many more producers for red. AK Misk has got a pretty decent amount on the left-hand side. This is the refinery that blue decided to build, which isn't as useful anymore because there are no energy producing unit or energy consuming units for blue. Here's the airport being rebuilt. This is in a very nice spot because it makes it harder for red to get an approach on this airport that doesn't have to fly kind of around the mountains, and SAMs could dig in here Like the range of the planes will be that they could go down like kind of beside the mountain, but still the SAMs will be in range of the airport. Commando now complete. Still looking very tough for blue. 817 income for red and 834 for blue. So that being said, blue's still ahead on eco. But it feels like there's more producers for red. There are 5 barracks against 4 barracks. 2 factories against 2 factories. I guess it's not really. Pretty even producer count. So this will be quite the fight. There's a lot of air cover, and since there's only 4 SAMs, there is a chance that red could take the fight with the planes down here, but they'd have to fight all at once. So instead, I'll put the commands back on. Oops. Instead, Infensi is going to target down this town, with the 4 strikers about to show up, and the 5th one going to launch as soon as it's recovered. I think Infensi would have been able to do it. The command's since been destroyed, and there's no way that Infensi has seized this airport. Artillery for Infensi doing great. And more barracks in the north. This is super nice for red because there's a big enough army here that all of this territory that blue's already capped, red is just going to take back. And it's not like blue can really follow this army because these producers are going to have a pretty big red army at relatively quickly. Infensi is making 354 a minute at 877 total income, 300 a minute for AK at 900 total. So both players ecoing very well. And as long as AK Mist doesn't get totally destroyed in the north, I think that blue's back in this game. Certainly in a decent position. A commando taking out a barracks would be enormous, but I do not think it's going to happen. And because AK Mist has been able to solidify the position in the south, it's really not all that bad. It kind of turns into what happens in the north here. So nice play from the commando, but it's not quite enough to destroy the barracks. These strikers aren't attacking the SAMs, they're focusing on the infantry. Which is probably pretty good in these numbers. It's kind of lucky for red that the planes are totally out of range except for this one. And if we went top down, there's 3 cities. I guess there's really 2 cities on blue side. And then 2 cities on red side. It would be relatively even if the map split like this. And it's entirely interceptors from AK Misk in the south. There's a full dot of SAMs in the north, so this is pretty nice. And AK Misk knows what's going on, is going to build a barracks in an attempt to save these 3 infantry, or rather these 6 infantry, but also just build up an army that threatens this red army and then potentially can push back and take all this territory. If Infensia decides to turn around. It's a good arty blob. It's a good amount of arty for... It's not a blob of arty by any means. This is a good amount of arty for red. So very slowly pushing the lines forward. But there's not really an option for AK Mist to now defend and dig in close to the barracks. It's almost too late for that in the position that these barracks are in. This factory and this barracks in the south are fully online now. Maybe if these are some helicopters, and that might be what's happening. Yeah, there's helicopters on the way for AK Mist because there's no SAMs for red. At least not right now. And a wave of commandos taking on the infantry. Super interesting game. It's 958 income for blue and 1097 for red. Nice thing for Infenzia is that, like, all of these towns have ports attached to them. And ports being one of the best, like, most efficient economic structures to build. Two barracks in the top left for AK makes sense. So planes from red gonna try to cut off some of the reinforcements. Because this part of the army can definitely deal with what blue's got here. If red can delay anything on the way to the front, that's a pretty big deal. And there's no more planes being built for Infenzia. Yeah, is that right? Is everything full? No, it's not full. This is a decision by red to not build more planes. There are a lot of SAMs out. There's now 2 full SAM dots, and then everything at home is pretty locked down. With the entrenchments. Big questions at this point is how big of an army is blue able to get in the top left? And more importantly, how effective is AK able to, like, take all this land back? And then just in general, what happens here? In the south, this is quite the fight. I think that AK is now stabilized enough with the airports showing up. And 3 interceptors when there's no SAMs down here make it so the strikers can't fly into this. And blue's bought enough time to dig in. We'd probably still see that Infenzia is up on eco. It's 1122 for red and 978 for blue. But AK is going for that counter push in the top left. Infenzia nearly all the way to the far right and a city on the way. Which will further increase red's eco lead. A city in general being worth 10 territories. AK is only making 78 a minute here at 968 total income. Infenzia at 226 at 1142. There's some momentum for blue here, but there is a flanking group of infantry. And I think this is going to stalemate rather quickly now that there's artillery dug in. And more airplanes on the way. Helicopters and interceptors. Top down. More red territories than blue territories. I don't think we can see units lost. We definitely can't see units lost. But it'd be interesting to see units lost in this game. If it's even remotely even. Neither player is really in a position to build a rocket. Infenzia would be sort of close, but would have to cut production and able to do so. AK definitely can't. The only reason I don't think rockets would be used on the army necessarily, but both bases are super close to each other. And there's like a decent amount of grouped buildings together that rockets could be effective against. The scary part is that both players have interceptors. And so they could spot that rocket, like the launch pad. And in Fenzia's case, there's even strikers, so they could target it down. My bet is that we don't see a rocket, but well, that's why we watch. This is pretty good for blue. The 2 barracks doing work. 3 SAMs dug in against 6 strikers, but 2 of which are kind of late to get here. The factory will die, but it's just a question of whether 1, 2, or even possibly 3 strikers go down. My guess is 2. Okay. That's gonna be maybe even 5. What is that? 3? That's 4 right there. I guess this one's gonna get out. What a play. Is it worth it for 1 factory for that many strikers? I think it's probably debatable. I don't know what you would, I don't know what you'd say. AK Miss probably says yes, it's fine that you lost 4 strikers for that. Infenzia probably doesn't feel the same way. This is pretty scary now, how it's turned on Infenzia in the south. And there's not much artillery support for red. There is a choke, which is really good if Infenzia decided to dig in here. It's a little bit bunched up, so maybe the entrenchment AI would go nuts and the units would get super derpy. But chokes are an obvious strong point in the map for defenders. Blue's gonna back up in front of the production. It's probably very wise. If red can break through and get into this mountain range, I think this becomes a super compromising position for AKA. There's this town here, which is also an important target. Infenzia is at 1332 total income, and AK is at 1118. Making some gains in the north. And those northern gains are important because it's actively taking away Infenzia's income. Not that it super matters, because red is building 2 more towns. And is this a southern factory or a northern factory? Where is this factory we just heard? Oh, there it is. Just in the middle of the field. Okay. This is super good for AK. If there can be a constant supply of units from blue in the north, just makes it so that there's 2 fronts that Infenzia needs to fight on. The entrenchment is probably just slightly too late, and now the units are gonna derp super heavy as they try to get in here. It's still gonna take a while for blue to break through this. But I don't really know how Infenzia is going to be able to solve this, because there is this full dot of SAMs. AK has a scary amount of helicopters for how close they are to this airport. Because 5 helicopters can destroy a building very quickly. Top down. Very close. Yeah, I like this play from red. To back up to a position where certainly all of the units are going to be able to dig in. It's a mix of infantry and artillery that are digging in here. I guess actually SAMs are also digging in, so it's all 3. And an infantry and artillery defensive line. I believe the infantry will try to go into the what am I trying to say? Like the first row of defense here, and the artillery in the back, which I didn't know until somebody pointed out, so maybe it's not even true. some of these artillery on the front. I don't know exactly how it works. I think it's anyone's guess who wins this game. Infanzia does have a second city. Red's been in front on eco this entire time. After that super strong early game start with sniping the airport. But one of the problems for Red is that Blue's now got a good amount of helicopters, and AK is very deadly with helicopters. So if Blue can just find the areas where there's low like a low amount of SAMs, and get a bunch of value out of it, it could eat away at Red's armies. It's 2 full airports full of strikers now for Infanzia, which is super nice. We might even see an airstrip at some point. 1272 income for AK and 1391 for Infanzia. Just swinging the camera around here. This is the strength of the strikers if they can get in and get out before the SAMs show up. Infanzia is going to try to push through the choke. I don't know if this is going to work. Yeah, okay, so like an AK backed up and Infanzia is also backing up. I think without rockets it'll be tough for either player to break through this at this point. With how many producers there are on either end of that choke. And for the most part, 2 barracks and 1 factory worth of units is able to defend Infanzia trying to counter push to the north. All the helicopters are here as well. There's a full dot of SAMs in the forest. This is AK's vision. So 2 of the SAMs here on the dot are visible. AK might have the pro gamer read that you can tell that these SAMs are in that semicircle, which would imply that there are other SAMs in that command as well. This many helicopters against this many SAMs, I think the helicopters would win it, but it would be a very tough trade. Yeah, three SAMs and entrenchments are very good. I don't even think this town's gonna go down. This is the only thing that matters in this game. Yeah, no, the town doesn't go down. And that's really tough, because that resets the striker count pretty much entirely. Some of these SAMs will also take a shot at it, I believe. And Infanzia's got 3 strikers almost. So here's AK's move. That's a lot of helicopters that went down as well. Not all of the SAMs are eliminated. There's 2 more SAMs showing up to reinforce. In general, Infanzia is holding here. $13.54 eco for blue and $15.89 for red. If Infanzia loses this position, then the game is over, I believe, because it would strand this army, which then just gets sandwiched. And then it's just so much eco. Infanzia has now got pretty much all of the ports, I believe all of them. There is at the first dock of the game. My money is that Infanzia is going to build a transport boat and then go all the way up around the north and get behind here and land by the barracks. We've seen Infanzia do it before. It's one of the greatest moves you can pull off in line war. It's very good. There's no real way AK would see either on the outskirts of the map. If AK does, it'll be a huge play because there are blue helicopters there that can sink the transport boat super quick. And Infenzia's got 1675 total eco, making 550 a minute, aka making 370, pardon me, a minute at 1476 total eco. So both players are rolling on very healthy economies. And yeah, here we go. Infenzia is going to make a rocket. It makes a lot of sense. Red can certainly now afford it. Infenzia is also going to back up in the north. And probably try to fight with everything at once. Collapsing on this blue army of SAMs and artillery. The nice thing is that Infenzia is definitely going to be able to hold this off until the rocket is complete. And when the rocket's complete, Red's going to be able to fire... Pardon me. Red will be able to fire it either into the south and then push through the south, or into the north. And then I guess the plan would just be to push towards Blue's base. But AK is building more eco in the north. Blue does not have a rocket. Which we talked about the balance of the rocket in one of the past videos on the channel, if you'd like to check it out. In the team game context mostly is what we were talking about, because it certainly behaves differently in a 1v1 versus a team game versus a free-for-all. As I think is typical of like units in RTS in general. These strikers are going to get super owned by this dot of SAM. There's enough strikers that they will be able to destroy a few of the SAMs, but I think 4 strikers, but it's going to be 5 strikers. Or 6 strikers, I can count. Okay, 6 strikers against 6 SAMs? I don't think it'll be pretty. $1528 eco for blue. 1703 for red. Rocket is now on the stand for Infenzia. But AK is still pushing, and this is what looks really scary. Blue's out of energy, so the helicopters aren't able to go right now. Has this been on one refinery this entire game? This has been on one refinery the entire game for blue. Which is impressive. So if Infenzia gets the rocket... I don't know, this actually looks super tough. This is now a very difficult position for Infenzia. There's no good place to put the rocket that is going to really change anything. There's not really enough units in the south for it to be worth it. It can't hit any of these buildings. It could if the rocket lands short, it can destroy the SAMs, but kind of debatable if it can even go that far. This is a decent location, but it's got to fly over all these SAMs. What a game. What did this dock build in the north? Okay, so it is transport boats. Nothing was tried yet. My apologies, I feel like my camera movement's been like super erratic when I've been casting this, but it is what it is. There's no way that Infenzia is going to be able to defend this. AK is going to take this game. Which is surprising. Super well played by both players though. But you can tell the ecos were very healthy all game long. Still 1600 eco for Infenzia. And now 1600 for AKA. And you would expect that blue would just continue to eco build these ports. Start building cities. Another good drop idea from Infenzia here. But Spider-Man and Gift, they're both doing it. And the nice thing for landing the commandos here for blue is that there is this refinery. And all this mountains and forests that the commandos can get lost in. With that stealth characteristic. Some nice pipelines with a depot. And the rocket is about halfway done. But sort of as mentioned, it'd be very difficult to find a spot to to launch it. Taking this out would be kind of nice, but it kind of just delays the inevitable now that all of these producers are being cleaned up. The C4 animation is absolutely wonderful. I love that. And the 2 airports, Invenzi just freeing up some money, maybe some space. Just deciding that there's no way that any planes are going to be useful at this point with how many SAMs that Blue has. And I think this is one of the rare games where you see the player with a lower consistent eco throughout the game win, and win in this way. This felt like an extremely close game the entire time. Super interesting. It's 1643 total income for red and 1760 for blue. So AK has officially passed Infenzi in income. Yeah, this was the plan with the transport boats to go around the top. What a game. Oh, do we get to see the rocket? Oh, surely we see the rocket when it's nearly complete. So as soon as it's ready to go and Fenzia launches it, this is in fact the best place to launch the rocket. It's gonna get the most value. A nice hit. If Infenzia could take this transport boat, maybe start building a base up here, and take back all of this, like maybe it could work, because Infenzia so far is defending this refinery and building 2 more barracks. It's just the question of whether that many transport planes can reinforce this quicker than 3 barracks can. And where are AK's helicopters? Okay, they're up here. Although there's only 2 of them, I thought there were more of them. 3 missile boats escorting this transport ship in case there are helicopters. That's why I was looking for them, because the helicopters would be able to respond super well to that. But I guess only 2 are left over. I mean, Infenzia is now defending in this mountain range, like, decently. So maybe if red could get another rocket off. 1836 eco for blue and 1593 for red. And now AKA has a dock through here. There's some water territories, there's also this other refinery spot. I'm just impressed by both players have such solid ecos, still. At the money per minute that is being made. That, like, general rule of thumb of 300 money a minute is healthy. 300 and above, of course. AK doesn't have a rocket yet. Building entirely helicopters at this point. That's a cool little minigame fight between these two players, the infantry and the forest to the south. By that refinery. I already know that's what I'm using as the thumbnail. I already know it. Once those commandos move into the forest. That's that YouTube gamer sense. 1900 eco for blue and 1583 for red. The problem is, without taking back any territory, red's in a lot of trouble. Like, Infensi would have to start taking all of this back, and I do see it. As I'm sure you do as well. There is the city under siege by 4 commandos. Blue commando's definitely going to be able to destroy this. And that will be the kind of like game-ending blow. I'm still gonna use that. Don't care. Commandos and defensive lines look equally as cool as them walking through the forest. So we'll probably see a second rocket from Infenzia. And then a GG. Because there's nothing that red can do now. Losing the city is a huge deal. I've never actually checked this. Does this change in real time? It must. Yeah, total capital income is just gonna drop. 1445, 1435. Rocket is complete, so here we go. This thing speeds up. That many SAMs won't be able to destroy, but it probably was relatively close. Probably was relatively. I'm so sure about it. GG. This is gonna get cleaned up because the 2 barracks just turning around all the units. And well played both. I saw that there was a thread about this in the match replays channel of the Line War Discord, so I knew I had to cast that. I don't even know what they were saying in the thread. I tried to watch it without, you know, knowing too much about the game, because I watch all these casts without watching them beforehand. I'd have no idea what goes on until I watch it. Units lost were 1900... Or sorry, 19,800, pardon me. For Infenzia. Is there army value? GG. Well played both. I hope you enjoyed this video. Liking it always helps, commenting helps, just watching the videos in general. Of course, subscribing to the channel helps the channel grow. I appreciate it very much, all the support. I hope you have a wonderful night, day, evening, whatever it is. Check out the Line War Discord again. Learn more about the game. Hope you have a good one. Peace.